Hi, this is chapter 23 of Gold Cord by Amy Carmichael. Prelude to chapter 23. Home of our hearts, lest we forget what our redemption meant to thee, let our most reverent thoughts be set upon thy Calvary. We, when we suffer, turn and toss and seek for ease and seek again, but thou upon thy bitter cross was firmly fixed in pain. And in our night, star clusters shine, flowers comfort us, and joy of song. No star, no flower, no song was thine, but darkness 3 hours long. We in our lesser mystery of lingering ill and winged death would fain see clear, but could we see what need would be for faith? O Lord beloved, thy Calvary stills all our questions. Come, O come, where children wandering wearily have not yet found their home. Chapter 23. And a light shined in the cell. How good it would be to leave it at that and tell no more, but truth is sacred. There is a Tamil word for insincerity, which means literally showing brass for gold. Shishak, king of Egypt, took away the shields of gold which Solomon had made. Instead of these, Rehoboam made shields of brass. The story illustrates that Tamil word. The Lord saved this book from anything of that sort. Sometimes those in whom we place a perfect confidence crash at the moment of utmost need, and the hopes of years and the work of years appear to be swept away like a straw before a flood. And we have had both men and women who, after running well, took the turning in the road that leads to compromise and entanglement. We have seen an upright Hindu hindered by one who should have helped him, till any desire he might have had to consider the heavenly master of such a servant vanished, and he said in effect, "Better to be a Hindu than that sort of Christian." And yet that Christian man had once been a witness and a winner of souls. We have seen some on whom all that love can offer had been poured shrink at the first touch of the offense of the cross, and, in common with all who know what such wounds can be, we have learned to fill them first as his whose love still follows those who deny him. But truly and exultantly we can say it. We have seen what love can do. These in whom we can have perfect confidence, in whom the slightest flaw in truth is inconceivable, these who set no limit, saying, "This far and no farther will I follow my Lord crucified," they are our joy and crown. There are days in this work when it is as though black seas swept over us. There are evil things which are so common in this land that no one is shocked by them. The reaction is not shame, but a smile. An older person will refer to detestable sins using a casual word which may mean play. Many a child is born into a heritage which must be harder to triumph over than we can imagine. Certainly it is so with some whom we have known. Given ancestors who belonged to one of the secret phallic cults as old as the East, must not there be a terrible hellward pull day by day, night by night? Education is utterly impotent before that pull. Nothing is strong enough to counter it but the powers of Calvary. We have seen those mighty powers triumph. Once in a very dark hour, when an uprush of these black seas appalled us, such a horror of sin as seen by the holy God was wrought in the convicted soul of one who had sinned that it was almost more than could be borne. Several were sharing the matter in prayer, of whom one had lately joined us. The date is later than this chapter, but dates are of no account in the things of the Spirit. And much concerned, for who could see unmoved a tall white flower bent down on its stalk till it touches very slime. We asked, "Are you sorry you came?" There was no answer then, only a smile. But an hour later, the answer was given on half a sheet of notepaper. We have sung it many times on our knees since that night. O God of peace, strong is the enemy, but thou art nigh, and he must fall beneath our feet because of Calvary. Give us calm confidence of victory, Lord of the fight. And when the enemy comes like a flood, put him to flight. Mighty the weapons of our warfare are through thee alone. O lead us to the battle, captain us, most mighty one. And the God of peace did captain us. The Lord brought a great victory that day, and the captive for whom that fight was fought with the powers of darkness was set free to become a force for good among us. For thou, O God, hast a mighty arm, strong is thy hand, and high is thy right hand, and thou art the glory of our strength. All who understand spiritual conflict such as this, and what it means to hold a long line on the edge of the enemy's country, will know what the loss of even one in that thin line can be. There was one among our Indian sisters who was able, because of certain gifts of insight and character and knowledge of Hindu ways of thought, to succor souls caught in these black seas. In her Bible, I find this: the man who has no experience in the dark has no secret to communicate in the light. Perhaps these words will show to the discerning that Urule had to give, and why we all felt that she was indeed impossible to spare. She had never been strong, and shortly before the Sisters of the Common Life came into being, to give her the best chance of health that we could, we sent her into the hot weather to friends in the hills. We sent her in the hot weather to friends in the hills. She returned home far advanced in nephritis. There came a day, it was our prayer day, but every day was a prayer day then, when, as I left her for an hour's wrestle with a fear that was now overshadowing us, a desperate kind of comfort came in the thought that she, at least, would never have to drink of this cup. The endurance of this pang, the rending of flesh from flesh, would never be asked of her, and somehow that did help. But we had to go further than that. All that day she had been delirious, and she was still unconscious when I returned to the little side room where one or other of us was with her night and day. And that night, when all was quiet, and when all human hope had fled, he to whom belonged the issues from death came into the house and took her by the hand and called, saying, "Maid, arise." But before this happened, there had been time for a question and an answer. And again, one instinctively turns to familiar words because they tell so much better than mine could what I want to show. And behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? Lord, if thou dost take her, how can the work go on? Drive that question back to its root. And how does it differ from Joshua's? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And he did so, and we did so too. Such an experience does not leave any who share it just where they were before. They may not be able to put their gains into words, but something has been gained, the precious things put forth by the moon. The chief things of the ancient mountains are theirs, and they can never lose them. But sometimes words can be found that sum up these gains. And for us, there are three which will be forever bright because of that darkness. These words are good, acceptable, perfect, that ye may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. That was the piercing word. And in Tamil, acceptable is rendered by a word meaning lovable. This word leads on through the acceptance, which is peace to something else, to somewhere else. Things temporal are transparent in that air, but the things that are eternal are manifest there. In ways like this, in dealings which again and again touch the key people of our work, those precious ones who could never be replaced, we were taught that the disposal of his forces is wholly in the hands of our commander-in-chief, and it was in times like this that our nights became light about us. Years later, in an hour of need, the everlasting Comforter came through the Septuagint version of Psalm 105:18. His soul, Joseph's, entered into iron. It was not that others put him in irons, though they did, they hurt his feet with fetters. It was that he himself acquiesced in, willingly walked into the unexplained trial of his God's dealings with him. His soul entered whole and entire in its resolve to obey God in the cruel torture, is Kay's note on that great matter. But what fathomless depths it must have held for our Lord Jesus when he set his face steadfastly to go to Jerusalem, Gethsemane, Calvary, and certain it is that whatever way of pain may open before any one of us, we find, as we walk in it, the marks of our dear Lord's footsteps leading on. He walked alone on that road so that we need never walk alone. No star, no flower, no song was thine, but darkness 3 hours long. He was hard on himself, but there is no hardness in his ways with us, and the dimmest pages in our story shine as we look back on them. We saw this once in parable. Some of us had gone to the coast to try to get rid of a persistent fever, and one night we bathed deliciously in a little bay between dark rocks. The night was moonless and starless, and the sea, except where it broke in ripples or waves, was as dark as sea can ever be. But when we came out of that water, we were covered from head to foot in phosphorescent light. And when we sat down on the wet sand and dug our hands into it, diamonds ran between our fingers. There are lights that watch for an occasion to appear. Such are the lights of strong consolation that have come when all was dark, whether because of some black trouble like the black seas of sin, or because of threatened harm or loss to that which is so much dearer to us than ourselves. For truly the love of the Lord, whose brightness is as the light, who is himself light, passeth all things for illumination. And if I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Light. There is something in the word that is not of earth. On a day when it brought us the very tenderness of God, a cable came from Australia, and a light shined in the cell. The words turned to song, such simple song that it would not be written here if it were not that so often very simple, almost infantile things carry little cups of comfort. And a light shined in the cell, and there was not any wall, and there was no dark at all, only you, Emmanuel. Light of love shined in the cell, turned to gold the iron bars, opened windows to the stars. Peace stood there as sentinel. Dearest Lord, how can it be that you are so kind to me? Love is shining in my cell. Jesus, my Emmanuel. End of chapter 23. And I just wanted to say I must have loved this chapter so much when I read it many years ago in Berlin that that last poem, I put music to it, and I sing it, as well as the first poem that I read, "Oh God of Peace, strong is the enemy." So within this chapter, I took two of those poems and put them to music. Thank you, Lord, for shining in our darkness. Thank you for listening, and please share if you like this book. Let others know about it. God bless you, and thank you.